One of the most interesting things about the Nintendo Switch 2 is that even though the system's been out for barely 3 months coming up here, it feels like it's been out for maybe a bit longer when it comes to how some people talk about this system over the internet, predicting that it's already going to be a super huge failure or it's going to be a massive success past the Nintendo Switch, which all of that obviously doesn't matter at this point. A system is defined by its games over the course of time and what the company does to invigorate the base when it comes to the system itself and everything. That's how all systems are. Usually, if you have a lot of success, there is a lot of content that comes to the system that gamers find incredibly fun to play, and that's the biggest thing. The Nintendo Switch 2 is just getting started. It just started out. There are still so many more games to come to the platform, and it's not all great. Obviously, there's some things that we're going to talk about in this video that Nintendo can improve upon overall, but if you're looking at it from the start here, I don't see how it's not exciting to really see what the future for the Nintendo Switch 2 is as a system that does things incredibly different from a lot of other platforms out there. So let's go ahead and start off with the performance of the system, and really, that doesn't matter. Yes, don't get me wrong, having the fastest selling system of all time is great. Nintendo supplied a bunch of systems, so that's awesome to see that. Having people go out there and still buy the system. Now, you're seeing new people get into it. Clearly, if you play the games, there are lots of people on the online platform if you're trying to play multiplayer and stuff like that, so it's great to see all that, but things really don't get started until year 2, year 3, year 4. That's when you start seeing some of the best games. That's when you start seeing really what the system can do. And listen, guys, I've been around for decades playing games. I've seen so many system launches, from the NES to the Super NES to the N64, N64 to the GameCube, and also the portable launches. I remember playing that back in the day. And if there's one thing that I've noticed that's the common thread throughout every single generation, even with Microsoft or even with Sony, is that the actual system and what you can expect doesn't really start till a bit later. Now, it gives you a taste at the beginning when it comes to what you can expect. The launch titles, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, or even having Mario Kart World, Donkey Kong Bonanza, like, you see what the potential is, but things really don't get going until year 2, year 3, year 4, and those are when some of the best games start to drop on the platform overall. Now, the games that we have right now are great, but to varying different levels, they do cross over with the Nintendo Switch 1 a bit. Wait until we see what is happening with specifically Nintendo Switch 2 built games through in and throughout, which we've had a couple of those when it comes to Mario Kart World, Donkey Kong Bonanza, but once again, varying levels of involvement with Nintendo Switch 1. But the next big major 3D Zelda, the next big major 3D Mario game, which I think is going to be coming or going to be announced pretty soon here at some point overall, the next major Pokemon game, Gen 10 Pokemon, is coming. And I'm telling you guys, it is going to be a behemoth when it comes to overall excitement and people looking forward to seeing it, whether they're looking forward to bash the heck out of the game when it comes to the graphics or animations, or whether they're looking forward to play it and defend it, or whatever the case is. There's going to be a lot of attention on that next gen Pokemon game, and regardless of how things go, I think it's going to bring a lot of people to the platform. Animal Crossing, there's been rumors and there's been talk about that as well. Animal Crossing has always been a big system hitter, even bigger system hitter than we've ever seen for Nintendo, specifically with the Nintendo Switch 1 and Animal Crossing New Horizons. 40 million plus when it comes to that game. You bet the Animal Crossing team is gearing up and getting ready for their next masterpiece when it comes to that. So that's the reason why I say we're just getting started. Like, that's great that Switch 1 so far has been pretty good overall. I think the games are solid for the first few months at this point, and third party, which we're going to talk about, has been good. But man, wait until year 2 and year 3 when you actually get those big system selling type of games on top of Donkey Kong, on top of Mario Kart, on top of Pokemon Legends ZA, on top of all these games that are already helping to move the system. I think that the Nintendo Switch 1 showed consumers, showed fans a clear path of, hey, you get everything when it comes to what Nintendo's doing. It's not split between a 3DS and a Wii U or a DS and a Wii or a GBA and a GameCube. You get everything overall. And what about the Super Smash Bros. Franchise? Over 35 million units sold at this point, one of the most consistent sellers and a massive system selling type of game. We're still going to get that on the Nintendo Switch 2. Don't worry, Sakurai doing Kirby Air Ride, but he's finished that game. He's got Super Smash Bros. Up next, and that is going to be huge when it comes to what that does for the Nintendo Switch 2. So it's just a combination of different things, of the different massive franchises that have yet to hit the system in the type of form and way that's going to impact it. And that's why I said year 2, year 3, year 4, those are truly the years that you see what a system is about and what it can do. Not people making clickbait videos and all this type of stuff beforehand and trying to predict its downfall. That's silly. What really comes down to is the big games when it matters the most, and Nintendo, they're delivering, and I see that continuing with the Nintendo Switch 2. And I'm not even talking about the smaller off games that have those certain niche fan bases tied to them, like Fire Emblem and Xenoblade, for example. You know the next installments of those from Intelligent Systems and Monolith Soft, whether they're going to be new IPs with Monolith Soft or a brand new big Fire Emblem game, which blew up when it comes to a strategy RPG. There aren't many hardcore strategy RPGs that sell better than Fire Emblem, and Fire Emblem has been known to move a few more systems when it drops. There are specifically hardcore Fire Emblem fans that buy a system just for that franchise overall. We saw that with the Nintendo 3DS, and we saw it with the Nintendo Switch 1 with Fire Emblem Three Houses and how that boosted things up. So we haven't even gotten those yet at this point. So there's still quite a bit more games. So when people start talking about, oh, well, it's going to do this or it's going to do that, we all know that it's just a bunch of clickbait at this point, man. You've really got to evaluate what's happening with the games and then go from there. That's what's the most important thing. No matter what anybody says online, it is going to be the games and how Nintendo applies them. Now, don't get me wrong. There are other things. You have pricing, you have obviously marketing. There's all sorts of stuff. But really, the better the games you have, the easier the marketing is overall. So I think that with the games that Nintendo does have that can move systems, the marketing and the message for the system is super clear at this point. So that's why I say you really shouldn't listen to like the grift Nintendo Switch 2 videos or content. A lot of that stuff is just AI generated anyway in terms of getting topics and getting views. A lot of these guys, they don't even care about Nintendo Switch 2. They don't even care about the games and playing them. They're just looking to get views on YouTube, or they're just looking to talk about something for attention. A lot of the people that actually have passion about this are playing the games, are understanding them, are giving you guys detailed analysis and breakdown, not just trying to convince you why a certain company or two is evil and all that. And that goes for Microsoft, Sony, Nintendo, every single company. Obviously, if you don't like something, that's fine. You can talk about it. But you know what some people are doing when it comes to milking information and false information and misleading, lying through omission and these type of things. Those type of people, I wouldn't really pay too much attention to them overall. When it comes down to a system, man, it's about the long haul. It's about the games over multiple years. And I think that these people know that because they make their own purchasing decision based off of that. They make their own decisions when it comes to anything based off of that. That's how most gamers operate overall. This thing is going to start getting very exciting, very interesting, especially with this rumored Nintendo Direct. If you're watching this before September at this point or in September, looks like there's going to be a lot more games announced for the system, big third-party titles as well. So that's just something that people know. Gamers know that it's going to take time overall, and it's going to build a library over time. The Nintendo Switch 1 didn't have everything right there at launch. It took a lot of time, and people were complaining like crazy in that system too. If you don't believe me, go check out my videos. I'll have some link of me trying to explain to people why all third-party developers left Nintendo Switch 1 and are taking time to get back to the system overall. And here's the crazy thing though, guys. Like, it's just getting started with the games, and the technology will get better as well. Developers are going to get more used to using DLSS, more used to using the unique architecture of the Nintendo Switch 2, more used to using what NVIDIA's been able to do. So I wouldn't expect massive graphical bumps when it comes to what Nintendo's going to do. Don't expect it to all of a sudden turn into a crazy different type of thing, but expect things to be better optimized, expect games to get better overall when it comes to performance and when it comes to what they're doing, because they get more comfortable with the system itself. I almost see it as like using software, using certain type of software, Microsoft Excel, or using editing software. The more that you use it, the more comfortable you get, the better that you get at it. And I think that the same thing can apply to a lot of different game development when it comes to what you're doing there. The more you use the tools, the more you use the system, things get easier and easier and things get better and better. Never super easy overall. It's always going to be work, but I'm looking forward to seeing what these devs can do as they get used to the Nintendo Switch 2 overall. Now, I did mention third-party support before, and I think that this is obviously going to be a key as well. First-party support is by far the number one thing that Nintendo needs to make sure is great on their platforms, because they sell their systems based off of that. But good third-party support can help in the time that you don't have some of those first-party games. So, for example, with the third-party support with the Nintendo Switch 1, man, it was struggleville with that, man. Like, seriously, there was not a lot of third-party games. There was barely any AA or AAA games within the first number of months. I mean, you would have a few here or there, but it was few and far in between, because third-party developers did not think that the Nintendo Switch 1 was going to be successful. So it struggled. I had to make 3 separate videos over the course of a year plus to explain what is happening with that, because of how the failure of the Wii U and with the Nintendo 3DS, a lot of third-party developers just even abandoning that system overall, that didn't really incite any type of confidence within Nintendo's next platform. And the successor ultimately to the 3DS and to the Wii U was the Nintendo Switch 1, and they weren't really feeling it like that. So that's the reason why. With the Nintendo Switch 2, third-party support is significantly better. Now, I know that there's missing some games here and there, and people are upset about that, or doesn't have everything. I get that. But if you look at the third-party games that the Nintendo Switch 2 has gotten at the beginning, at launch, and even continued on here, way better. It blows it out. It clears what the Nintendo Switch 1 did by a very large margin. That's where it's not even debatable at all. So having stuff like Cyberpunk, Hogwarts Legacy, in addition to Fast Fusion, and all the different types of games that have came out, Street Fighter 6, Split Fiction, the list goes on and on. Sega had a bunch of support with Sonic Cross Shadow, and a bunch of other games like Yakuza, and more games announced as well. Plus, upcoming here in September, we also have 3 pretty solid games with Hollow Knight Silksong, in addition to Daemon X Machina Titanic Scion and Trails in the Sky first chapter. So that right there pretty much beats out the majority of what the Nintendo Switch 1 did, probably in the first couple years when it comes to third-party support. We essentially had Skyrim, and we had Doom 2016, Resident Evil Revelations. I mean, there was some stuff, man, but the Nintendo Switch 2 third-party support absolutely blows Switch 1 out of the water from the gate, and will probably be better throughout the whole generation, as developers started in from the ground root level believing in the Nintendo Switch 2 to a degree. Maybe some of them don't have the outright confidence like 2K in putting, I don't know, Grand Theft Auto 6 on the system day and day, but I do think that there's a lot more confidence with the Nintendo Switch 2, considering how many games that we got. Civilization, Borderlands 4, Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade, Elden Ring. These are all games that are coming out, already announced and everything. So that is definitely significantly better than what the Switch 1 was doing. Now, there still is the Devkit situation. I think this is a natural transition into that, where people are kind of getting tilted. I've seen people come to my stream angry because of X, Y, and Z random developer or anonymous developer hasn't gotten a Devkit. So that's the reason why they don't have this game and that game or certain games, which we don't really know. We don't know what developers they're talking about. We don't know what's happening overall, but I do think that it's one of those things that it's going to fix itself over time. As more time goes on, more developers will get dev kits, more Nintendo Switch 2 editions will come out, more games will come out. So that's something that just kind of fixes itself itself over time, as we've got way more third-party support than we got with the Nintendo Switch 1. And we didn't hear any crazy dev kit talk. Nintendo's not giving dev kits and all that for Switch 1, yet where were all the games at in the first year for the Switch 1? So I think it's one of those things to where I think developers are getting them. There might be some situations or some issues with certain dev kits, but eventually developers will get their kits, and there'll be even more support than we've even already gotten overall with the Nintendo Switch 2, especially coming from Japanese developers. I think most of them have their kits because we're seeing a lot of Japanese developers pledge support as well, or even use the Nintendo Switch 2 as one of their main platforms already, like Falcom with stuff like Ease, Proud Nordics, and other games that are coming too. So I do think that that is going to be something that's going to be interesting overall. Heck, we already got Persona 3 Reload. I mean, look how long it took to get a Persona game on the Nintendo Switch 1 overall. So I think that things are going to get better and better as time goes on, especially with the independent developers, probably developers in the West that haven't got their kits yet. But yeah, Nintendo knows that they need to get on that. Obviously, they need to get more people kits and all that. So probably 2026 is when things will open up a bit more as well. So I do want to just briefly talk about the end of the year games, because I think that's also interesting, and maybe I should have talked about that earlier, but that's okay, whatever. So let's talk about the end of the year games. I think that that's going to be really interesting. We still have the Direct that's coming up, so there'll probably be another game or two announced. There's stuff like Splatoon Raiders that we know nothing about overall. Metroid Prime 4 Beyond still needs to get dated as the time that I'm recording this video. I think it will, and I think it's coming out this year, but once again, we will see. I think that's going to be awesome. Kirby Air Riders November 20th. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. Kind of weird and quirky. Sakurai's kind of crazy at times when it comes to him and how he puts together his games, but he has a down-to-earth feel that shows that, you know what, he's a true gamer overall and truly does care about the games that he creates. So that's going to be a lot of fun too overall. Pokemon Legends ZA, that's going to be the big system selling title, new title for the end of the year for the Nintendo Switch 2. You got the bundle. It's coming to Switch 1 as well, just like Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. But most people that want that best experience when it comes to Pokemon, if you're looking forward to it, you're going to buy it on the Nintendo Switch 2 if you can get one. Or if you can't, you're going to ask for it for Christmas overall when it comes to the kids. So I think that the Nintendo Switch 2 version of Pokemon Legends ZA, I think that can still do incredibly well and help move systems quite a bit. Now, if you look at Metroid Prime 4 Beyond or Kirby Air Riders, those games don't necessarily have the biggest attraction or pull or sell, but I think if you combine them, and maybe even with the Splatoon Raiders, or you combine it with the Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade, you combine it with some of the other games that are coming out, they can all collectively help push the system and kind of uplift it as one maybe bigger game would do. So I think that you combine that Pokemon Legends ZA with Donkey Kong Bonanza in addition to Mario Kart World, because those games are evergreen for the duration of the Nintendo Switch 2's life. I think that you combine all that with the Pokemon plus the third party and the other Nintendo Switch 2 first party games, you're going to get a really good holiday season, and it's going to be a lot of fun because there's a lot of games coming out and not enough time to play all of them. First world problem and good thing to have overall when you got too many games when it comes to play. So what do you guys think about everything here that I had to say about the Nintendo Switch 2? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out my other Nintendo Switch 2 RPG games and more right here on screen. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.